Hi everybody, welcome. This is the wife of Caesar. My name is Michel Levien, either is fine. And I hope you're doing great. I'm doing fantastic. I had a great breakfast, everything's going awesome. And I hope you're doing well. The wife of Caesar, as we've discussed before, is Streiner's attempt at discussing corruption using regular words in a simple, clear way. So we hope this can help. Our program, as always, is divided into 3 sections. First, we do the news. Second, we do the specific case of corruption. And third, we do a typology. So I hope you'll enjoy it. So let's go to our first section. The first section is the news. As we discuss every week, we take a piece of news and analyze it and see whether or not we can find the link between it and corruption. If the link is very clear, then we only analyze its relevance. And if it isn't, we try to explain how it's linked to corruption and then analyze how it's important. The news here is Transparency International released its 2018 Corruption Perceptions Index. The CPI, or Corruption Perception, this index is Transparency International's attempt at measuring corruption. Now, measuring corruption is very hard because this is the sort of thing that you do in the dark. You almost always try to hide it. So what they do, and this is important, they measure how people feel about corruption. So 2 notes, this isn't objective measuring. They merely go around polling people with a very specific set of questions, but they essentially run polls and ask people how they feel about their government. Now, the second thing to consider here is that the Perceptions Index only measures public corruption and obviously perceived public corruption. So private corruption is not necessarily included. So the Perceptions Index, even though it is the most sophisticated tool we have today to measure corruption, has to be taken with a grain of salt because it isn't entirely accurate, and it cannot be entirely accurate because it isn't entirely objective. Now, an interesting example of this is the 4 Nordic countries and New Zealand appear to do very well, and they have been doing very well in the CPI for the past, I think, 3 years. But again, this is only public corruption. When you think about how some Nordic banks, and for example, Switzerland does very well in the CPI, but Swiss banks are notorious for their banking secrecy laws, which in turn fuel money laundering, which in turn fuels corruption. So again, private sector is not entirely considered. The same thing happens for banks, for example, from Denmark, which right now are in a bit of hot water because of money laundering. So when you cite the CPI, the index, just be sure that you're not exonerating a country, or you're not chastising a country just for being low or high on the index. Take that into consideration. Okay, awesome. Today's news is about Odebrecht, the Brazilian construction company, and how it was disbarred by the WBG, that is the World Bank Group. Now, okay, number 1, disbarment is being put on a blacklist. You are disallowed from ever participating with us. That the government can do that, a private company can do that, and in this particular instance, international organizations can also do that. Okay, the World Bank Group, as most of you would know, is an international organization, or rather 5 international organizations all rolled into one, and their sole job is to fight poverty. And they do this by placing strategic investments in different places of the world that apparently would need the investment, the employment, the social security, things like that. And this is the way they indirectly fight poverty. Now, because they have so many projects and they involve a great considerable funds, the World Bank has also a mandate. They have a division they call Integrity, and Integrity is kind of like an anti-corruption prosecutor for a country, but inside the World Bank. It is the authority in charge of investigating possible acts of corruption and resolving those accusations. Okay, so what happened with Odebrecht is we've heard about them on the news almost for, like a year? Odebrecht, for those of you who don't know, is a Brazilian company who's been accused of many counts of corruption in many countries, among them chiefly the US, Switzerland, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, obviously Brazil. It's been a whole thing since about 2015. What happened here is that they've been sanctioned by government authorities, but this time they were sanctioned again by the World Bank. What they did here was traffic with influence and manipulating a process of a tender or a bid, a government bid. Now, what went on here is that Odebrecht was bidding in Colombia to build a communications project. Transportation project is a highway, I believe. What they did is Odebrecht hired a third-party consultant, a firm, an external firm, and that firm allegedly renders some services. Now, those services actually consisted of the firm going to the government official in Colombia and, with however means possible, securing inside information on the process of the tender, which is, if you think of it, it is akin to buying the answers of a test, right? Getting the answers for an exam or for a test beforehand, you have an unfair advantage. So Odebrecht does appear in the bid process, and everything appears to be regular, but somehow their answers are perfect, and their answers are perfect in every regard because they already knew the questions. Now, this is, at its very basic, it's cheating, but at these levels, it is a very serious crime. So what happened here is that because of the way Odebrecht conducted this bid, and because it was using money that it was given to it by the World Bank Group, the World Bank investigated it and disbarred it for 3 years. So that means that Odebrecht is barred or forbidden from requesting money from the World Bank Group or any of its affiliates for the next 3 years. So now let's move on to the typology section. A typology, as we have explained before, is just a model or an example of something, an iteration of something. So in the case of corruption, it is a way in which people commit corrupt acts, right? So when they understand the concrete steps that they take, that would be a typology. And today we will discuss information trafficking and how the role that plays in manipulation of bidding processes, tender processes. Now, information traffic, it is the offense of obtaining information to which you should not have access, and to do so by improper means. So in our case, and this fits very well with the Odebrecht case, these people obtain information that they should not have access to because government tenders tend to be secret or at least confidential, and they did so by employing corrupt means. They hired the outside consultant that then takes the money and pays the bribe. And well, this is a crime because, again, it's a very complex form of cheating, but essentially it fosters unfair competition. Now, the best way to fight this sort of offense is to implement a compliance program in your company and make sure that compliance, or in your organization, and make sure that compliance program carries out what we call third-party due diligence. Now, it's just a fancy way of checking up on the people with whom you work. If you're going to do business with someone, in this case, the outside consultant, you want to make sure that he or she is on the up and up, that he or she is honest, and also that you can prove that you can prove to anyone else who comes asking, well, yeah, I did check up on this consultant, and she appeared to be honest and do things properly because this and this and that. The more documents that you have to prove that you did your proper research, your due diligence, the easier it is for you to protect yourself from liability, protect your organization from liability. Now, this isn't only exactly about avoiding trouble, avoiding liability, but if you do this the right way, you ensure that you only do work with third parties who are honest and who do things the right way. And in a very indirect way, but in a very real way, you are fostering a market where competitiveness also hinges not only on the price that you can charge, but also on how honest you are. Okay, so that'll be all for today. Again, I am Michel Levien, either's fine, and this is the wife of Caesar. Now, I cannot leave you without reminding you, as always, you should always report corruption, always, but never do it at your own peril. You only do it when you feel safe and when you're sure that no sort of harm will come to you. If you're not sure, feel free to reach out to us. Write us at info@streiner.mx. And if we can, we will be happy to help you in any way we can. Just take care of yourself. This is the wife of Caesar, and thank you.